as the engineering fraternity, we're always seeking to interconnect with our colleagues, with the Jamaica Institute of Architects, with the University Institute of Sustainable Development, because it's so important to us as engineers that we look at the entire system. I was actually quite pleased to see Professor Clayton's presentation at the beginning, and as a regional director of JPS. He started out on a good note, supporting this business of why the bills were high, but the second part of it, I think we need to have some further discussion on it. I do look forward to paying my light bill because because it's so important, energy in this country. But nonetheless, this business of sustainability, and I think the previous speaker spoke to it, we know in this country that, and Hodges spoke to it, we know in this country that the problem of planning and the problem of how we work in silos has caused us to be where we are. And the JIE, for instance, remains, and we consider ourselves to be one of the stewards of our built environment, along with the architects, along with the land surveyors, planners, quantity surveyors. We all remain as stewards of the industry. And while our infrastructure is resilient, has been resilient to the many vulnerabilities we're faced with, the fact of the matter is that we are not yet at first world standards. The fact of the matter is that in terms of how our buildings interact with the environment, the efficiency of the buildings, we're certainly not where we need to be. And so every single day we look at these things in our deliberations. We, for instance, played a vital role in the development of the current building code, and that's driven mostly by the fact that the building code that we have in this country is 107 years old, something to that effect. And so, along with the architects and other building professionals, we looked at the building code. We have put a new building code in place, and now what we're waiting on is for the government to enact, put the Building Act in place so that the code can be enforced. And this is so important if we're going to talk about the things that Professor Clayton is mentioning in terms of bringing our buildings up to standard, because you must have standards, right? We cannot have these form of buildings if we don't have standards. Lauren, anyway. And so today, in endorsing this event, I really just wanted to put out there a couple of the concepts that the JIE has out there on this slide, and you saw some of it earlier in terms of just our current interaction. And while this is UK data, many of it we find has been transposed here to Jamaica. Buildings consuming 50% of primary energy, could be higher here in Jamaica, I'm sure. 50% of CO2 emissions. The construction industry, we know, frequently pollutes water. 4.7% of noise complaints are related to the construction industry. So just how we manage the industry is something that we continue to look at, and the building code and the Building Act and enforcement of the code is something that we see is the next step in taking us to the next level. Next slide, please. As we continue to look at renewable solutions, which is something that's also big on sustainability, we see windmills all around, right? Yet we continue to search, globally. And this slide to the left, while that's nuclear power, which is not on our agenda, but the mass concrete that goes into making these silos, right, require a lot of energy to develop. So on one side of the equation, we're developing all these renewable solutions, yet we continue to have an industry that's looking at designs that are heavily dependent on concrete. We know in our buildings, we're using interior walls with block and steel and all these heavily dependent materials that we really have to know in Jamaica, start looking at alternative materials that are not only more sensitive to energy efficiency, but also even at the primary level in terms of developing the material. Next slide, please. Roadways, right? And this is something that I speak to engineers about all the time. I mean, you get a concept of developing a highway. Let's develop a highway to Ocho Rios. We need a highway to Ocho Rios, right? Of course, you can say, well, there's quality of life, we have independence, the transport system sucks. right? But there's also the cons. I mean, there's higher emissions, right? More resources, all the marl that goes into the roads. And so this is where we really have to look at the entire picture, right? We have to look at what our energy demands are. How are we really living? Can we afford to live like this, right? As we look at buildings, more and more as we look at buildings, there's a discussion about solar and LEDs. And I mean, a common thing that I see happening so much around us is that persons watch HGTV, for example, we all have cable, and they see these beautiful LED lights and all these things in here, and it's transposed. You go to Active Traders, it's all there, it looks good. But then when the bill comes, right, and I can tell you from JP's perspective, you know, these hotels, they remodel, and then when the bill comes, right, they can't pay the bill, you know, and they're saying, why is my bill so high? But no, right, just like the earlier presentations, we need techniques that will give you lower energy usage. And so this is the whole idea. What's the entire system? Is your architectural design aligned with your energy cost, right? Is your roadway design aligned with your energy? Your roadway policy? Is your building design aligned? And so we look forward today to really receiving the results of this study, of this project. I think it will go a far way to contributing to the body of knowledge. And so what I put forward to you today is this business of systems thing, particular problems, and here in Jamaica we have many. And the possible ways in which change can occur. Change is what we want, right? It provides an alternative way of thinking which focuses on studying things in terms of their connections, context, and relationship to the whole. And so for the JIE, what we hope today is that this study will take us there. Thank you.